In the heart of a futuristic city built on steel towers and neon skies, scientists worked for decades on something called Project Helix. It was meant to be humanity's salvation, a limitless energy source that could end wars, end hunger, and power the world for eternity. Inside a massive underground chamber, a glowing orb pulsed like a beating heart. Alive with both light and shadow, crowds outside celebrated the dawn of a new age, unaware that the very core of this experiment was unstable. A few skeptics whispered warnings, but no one listened. After all, who would doubt the brilliance of humanity's greatest minds? The night the Helix was unveiled, fireworks lit the skies, music echoed across the streets, and every screen broadcast the same message: "Welcome to the future." No one realized that they had just unlocked the door to something far more dangerous than they could control. The celebration ended with a scream. The Helix core shuddered, then cracked open like a broken star. Darkness poured out, swallowing the chamber in seconds. Scientists who once stood proudly at their machines were consumed by shadow-like tendrils that moved with terrifying intelligence. Above ground, the earth shook violently, and skyscrapers crumbled as if the city itself were afraid. The sky twisted black, blotting out the moon, as creatures made of bone, steel, and shadow emerged from the rift. In minutes, the City of Light became a graveyard of fire and ruin. Military forces responded, but their weapons failed to damage. The beasts, bullets passed through them as if they were smoke, only for claws of shadow to tear tanks apart. In that single night, humanity realized it had not created energy. It had given birth to a nightmare. From the heart of the broken core, a colossal figure began to rise. Taller than the tallest tower, its body was a twisted fusion of bone, metal, and endless void. Its chest glowed with a pulsating orb of dark energy, and its roar echoed like thunder across the ruins. This was no longer energy, it was life, intelligence, and hunger. The creature, known later as the Helix Titan, was the embodiment of chaos itself. Wherever it walked, the ground burned, buildings melted, and survivors were crushed beneath waves of shadow. Soldiers fled in terror as the beast's massive tendrils smashed through concrete and steel. The world had birthed something it could never cage again, and its first steps marked the beginning of humanity's fall. Amidst the chaos, a few survivors gathered in shattered streets. Some were scientists who had seen the disaster firsthand. Others were soldiers and civilians clinging to hope. Among them was Marek, a scarred soldier with eyes hardened by countless battles. He had lost his family in the first wave of destruction, but he carried something no one else did, a secret. Marek had been part of an experiment before the Helix collapse, one designed to fuse human DNA with fragments of the very energy now destroying the world. His veins sometimes glowed faintly gold, and when he clenched his fists, sparks danced across his skin. Though the others didn't know the full truth, Marek understood one thing: he was not entirely human anymore, and in this ruined world, that might be the only advantage they had. The scientists who survived revealed the truth to the group. Marek was not just a soldier, he was their final weapon. Before the disaster, they had infused him with a fragment of Helix energy in hopes of creating a protector. It was unstable, unpredictable, and painful, but he was alive. The survivors looked at him with fear and hope, unsure if he was their savior or their doom. Marek himself didn't know. When he slept, he dreamed of shadows whispering to him, calling him their brother. When he fought, his body cracked with golden light, powerful but dangerous, as if every strike tore at his soul. Still, when the shadow beasts came again, he stood between them and the survivors. With a roar, his fists exploded with fire and light, burning the darkness back, at least for now. The survivors moved cautiously through the ruins, guided by Marek's instincts and the faint glow that sometimes leaked from his veins. The city was no longer the city they knew. It had become a hunting ground. Towering skyscrapers were now hollow skeletons, wrapped in dark vines of Helix energy. From every shadow, they could hear the low growls of the creatures searching for prey. One wrong step, one careless noise, and the monsters would descend upon them like a storm. Yet Marek walked at the front, unafraid. Each time danger drew near, his body responded. His pulse quickened, and golden fire flickered in his eyes, pushing the shadows back. The survivors began to trust him, not because he was invincible, but because he never wavered. Still, Merrick knew the darkness was watching him closely, like a predator recognizing one of its own. Deep underground, hidden in what remained of a research bunker, the survivors found something unexpected, a weak but steady signal. A scientist named Dr. Alara explained it came from another facility far away, one that might hold the knowledge to fight the Helix Titan. The problem was distance. To reach it, they would have to cross cities swallowed by darkness, mountains crawling with beasts, and wastelands scarred by Helix storms. For many, it seemed impossible. But Alara's words carried weight. If we don't try, humanity ends here. Merrick clenched his fists, feeling the golden fire stir within him. He didn't trust the scientists. After all, they had created this nightmare, but he couldn't deny the truth. If there was even a chance to end the Titan's reign, they had to take it. They didn't get far before the Helix forces found them. A screech ripped across the ruins as shadow beasts descended from the rooftops, their bodies twisting like liquid metal. Panic erupted among the survivors, but Merrick didn't hesitate. His body flared with golden light as he charged forward, fists striking with the force of small explosions. Each punch shattered a beast into fragments of smoke and sparks. The others tried to help, firing weapons, throwing debris, anything to keep the creatures at bay. Still more came, wave after wave, as if the Helix Titan itself had noticed their movement. Merrick roared in fury, but every strike drained him further, his chest burning as though fire was eating him from the inside. Victory came only after a brutal fight. And when the last beast fell, Merrick collapsed to his knees, his skin flickering between light and shadow. That night, as the group camped inside the hollow remains of a library, silence hung heavy. Merrick sat apart from the others, staring at his hands. The golden glow pulsed faintly, but within it, he saw cracks, dark veins that weren't his own. The Helix energy inside him was spreading, changing him little by little. He remembered the whispers in his dreams, the voices calling him brother. He feared that one day he wouldn't be fighting the darkness, he would become it. Ilara approached quietly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone, Merrick," she said softly. "Whatever's inside you, it doesn't define who you are." Merrick didn't answer, but deep inside, he wondered if she was wrong. Maybe he was not humanity's savior. Maybe he was just another monster waiting to be unleashed. At dawn, the survivors began their journey toward the distant signal. The city stretched endlessly behind them, a broken grave of glass and steel. Ahead lay a wasteland scarred by Helix storms, raging tempests of black, lightning and shifting shadows that tore apart anything in their path. Every step felt like a gamble with death, yet the group pressed forward, guided by determination and desperation. Merrick walked in silence, his mind torn between two worlds. With each mile, the golden fire inside him grew harder to control, flaring in anger whenever danger was near. He feared that one day it would consume him completely, but until then he would fight, for his fallen family, for the survivors who followed him, for the slim hope that somewhere out there humanity still had a chance. As they crossed the wasteland, the ground trembled beneath their feet. From the horizon, a colossal shadow rose, the Helix Titan, larger and more terrifying than anything they had faced before. Its body shimmered with a strange, dark energy, veins of crimson and gold pulsing across its metallic bone frame. The survivors froze, fear gripping their hearts, as the Titan's glowing eyes scanned the ruins. Merrick stepped forward instinctively, golden light flickering across his skin, fists tightening. He could feel the connection. The pulse of energy from the Titan resonated with the Helix fragment inside him. Every instinct screamed to fight, but the sheer size of the creature made even him hesitate. Around them, the wasteland erupted with shadow beasts, as if the Titan's presence called them home. This was no ordinary battle. It was the beginning of a war that could determine the fate of humanity. Vera drew her twin blades, the edges glowing bright blue against the darkness. She turned to the survivors, her face resolute. "We move together. No one fights alone." Her voice carried authority, cutting through fear like a blade. As the first wave of shadow beasts charged, she leapt forward, spinning and slashing with precision. Sparks flew with each strike, and golden light from Marek's attacks illuminated the chaos. The survivors followed, inspired by her courage. Even in the shadow of the Titan, hope flickered, fragile but alive. Vera's determination reminded everyone why they were still fighting. Her presence anchored Marek, who struggled to control the energy raging inside him. Without her, he might have lost himself to the darkness. As the battle raged, Marek felt it, the whispering again. The Helix fragment inside him struggled for dominance. He saw visions of shadow, twisted versions of himself, beckoning him to join the Titan, to embrace the power fully. Pain shot through his chest as the golden light clashed with black veins crawling across his skin. For a moment he faltered, his fists slowing, his mind clouded by the whispering voices. But then he remembered the faces of the survivors, their trust and hope placed entirely on him. Clenching his teeth, Marek pushed the darkness back, letting the golden fire surge brighter, stronger. Each strike became precise, fueled by both fear and determination. This was not just a battle for the world, it was a battle for his own soul. With Marek regaining control, the survivors began to push back. Shadow beasts fell under the combined assault of golden fists and glowing blades. The Titan roared, a sound that shook the horizon and splintered nearby ruins. Marek leapt high, smashing into a group of creatures with a force that sent shockwaves across the ground. Vera followed closely, spinning through the chaos, her blades slicing through shadows as if cutting through mist. For the first time, the survivors believed victory was possible. The Helix Titan's steps faltered slightly, its massive form rocked by Marek's relentless assault. Yet even as they fought, the survivors knew this was only the beginning. The Titan had endless strength, and the shadows were infinite. Night fell, briefly quieting the battlefield. Marek and Vera stood together on a crumbling tower, watching the fires burn below. The air smelled of ash and ozone, remnants of the day's relentless combat. Marek's body throbbed with golden light, his veins faintly black at the edges, a reminder that the Helix fragment within him remained unstable. Vera looked at him, exhaustion and concern in her eyes. "You can't do this alone," she said softly. Marek shook his head, determination hardening his features. "I have to. For all of us." Silence followed, broken only by distant roars of shadow beasts. In that quiet moment, they understood that the fight ahead would demand everything: strength, courage, and perhaps sacrifice beyond measure. The survivors approached the Titan's core, a massive crater where dark energy pulsed like a heartbeat. Marek felt the Helix fragment within him resonate violently, warning him of the danger ahead. Shadow beasts swarmed from every direction, forcing the group into a desperate fight. Marek's fists flared with golden fire, striking down wave after wave, while Vera cut a path through the chaos with her glowing blades. Each second felt like an eternity. The air shimmered with energy, debris floating in slow motion around them. The Titan loomed above, massive limbs poised to crush, its glowing chest radiating power. Marek knew that to stop it, he would have to confront not only the Titan, but the darkness inside himself, and he braced for the ultimate test. With a roar, Marek launched himself at the Titan, golden energy exploding from his body. Every strike burned him from the inside, the Helix fragment screaming in both pain and fury. Shadow beasts tried to intervene, but Vera and the survivors held them back. The Titan staggered under Marek's relentless assault, but he felt his strength fading. The whispers inside him grew louder, urging him to surrender to the darkness. He clenched his fists and screamed, pouring every ounce of willpower into a single blow aimed at the Titan's glowing core. As he struck, a wave of energy erupted, engulfing the battlefield in blinding light. When the light faded, the Titan lay shattered, its enormous body smoking and lifeless. Marek collapsed, exhausted and burning from the inside out. Vera ran to him, her eyes wide with fear. "No, don't leave me!" she cried, clutching his trembling hands. Golden fragments of energy danced around them, floating like stars in the darkened sky. The survivors approached cautiously, unsure if Marek had survived or become one with the Helix energy. For a moment, silence ruled the battlefield, a silence heavy with grief and hope intertwined. As dawn broke, sunlight pierced the smoke and ruins, casting warm light across the shattered city. Survivors emerged from hiding, staring at the horizon with cautious optimism. The air smelled of ash and ozone, but the black clouds had lifted. Marek, leaning on Vera, watched the sunrise with a mixture of exhaustion and relief. His body still glowed faintly golden, a reminder that the Helix energy within him had not completely vanished. Around them, humanity's remnants began to rebuild, small fires of hope igniting amid the destruction. Though the Titan was defeated, Marek knew the war was far from over. The Helix energy still pulsed within him, unpredictable and powerful. Vera and the survivors looked to him, their trust unbroken despite the danger he represented. Together, they prepared to face the challenges ahead, rebuilding, protecting and confronting the shadows yet to come. Marek's eyes glowed softly, a promise of strength and vigilance. Humanity had survived the first nightmare, but the journey into the unknown was just beginning. And as the sun rose higher, casting its golden light over the ruins, a fragile but unyielding hope took root.